the Community Preservation meeting. It's a regular CPC meeting, Don B. Griffin Room, Harwich Town Hall, 732 Main Street in Harwich at 6 p.m., well, 6:04 at this point, on Thursday, September 8th. Here's the call to order. We're going to open up the meeting with public comments. Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak? Would you please state your name?
Joe Rigo, Pleasant Lake Valley Village. I'm representing the Harwich Fire Association, and I wanted to come to you guys today to mention that we'll be applying for 2 projects this year, soon at the end of the month. One project is we are co-purchasing 203 Bank Street, the historical fire station, with the Harwich Conservation Trust, and that first project we would like to try to make it historically to what it used to be, siding, windows, the way it looked back in the day, sign, all that stuff, make it kind of look 1928 again. That's our first. By the way, that station is the first station for the town of Harwich, and it was built because of my second project. The Harwich Fire Association owns the town's first fire engine. It's a 1928 Maxim made in Middleborough, and it's been refurbished once, kind of more paint, looks, tires, all that. It looks great. It doesn't go far. It hasn't been in a parade in a long time. So I'm working on an application to see if I can get that as a historical vessel and get that mechanically redone so it can be used throughout the town and displayed in that antique, fire station. Those are 2 things I wanted to talk to you guys about, and if you had any questions or comments or anything, feel free.
What I would suggest you do is, first of all, thank you for the information tonight. There won't be any questions from the board tonight. Submit your application on
Yep.
October 1st.
Yep.
Or it's the 2nd?
I think it's the 3rd.
It's on the 3rd. It's on a Monday?
The packet's clear.
On the weekend?
Yep.
Okay. And then we'll take it under advisement, and we'll call you in, and we'll have a discussion.
Great. Just wanted to let you guys know. Thank you very much.
So, since I'm the historic representative, be sure to get on the agenda for the next historic meeting.
I've been on the agenda. There hasn't been a couple of weeks, so I'm excited
Okay.
End of the month to talk to you guys.
Great, thank you.
Thank
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody for public comments? Hearing none, moving on. Okay, now, approval of the minutes for CPC, June 9th, 2022. John, do you want to take this with the Hinckley's Pond?
Sure. Prior to our previous meeting that ended up not happening, I was reviewing the minutes and reviewing specifically the Hinckley's Pond finances and realized that there was an error in the motion that was made, because there was an error in the report that was made by Natural Resources about what had been spent and what was left over. But we made the motion, and the motion passed. The issue was that the Natural Resources report said the balance included in the Natural Resources report included the $75,000 for public access, which should not be, because that's still an active project. So the amount that we voted to return should have been $75,000 less than what we voted on. So I think the procedure here is to approve the minutes, and once that is done, I will make a motion to amend the previous motion with the correct numbers.
Okay, is there a motion on the floor to,
I thought it was the other way around. No,
I'm sorry.
that he votes to amend, we accept the amendment, and then we vote to approve the minutes.
That would be part of these minutes, the old minutes.
I mean, The minutes reflect what happened.
At the
And then you're
time.
gonna have to note a correction on the old minutes,
Right,
if we believe it was a mistake.
right.
Right, so don't we change the minutes first? And then we accept the minutes?
No, because
No, we,
you would note on the minutes that there was a correction made at a future meeting, but your minutes can't, minutes
Right.
reflect what you reflect.
Okay.
okay, there's a motion, is there a motion on the floor?
Nope. I
I'll
make a
move.
motion to accept the minutes of June 9th, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
I think, Joe.
Debate. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Ununanimous. Now, John?
I will make a motion to amend the motion that was made at the June 9th meeting on rescinding funds for 18 ATM Article Number 57 on the Hinckley's Pond project. The minutes state that the project was originally funded for $650,000 with $75,000 for the pond remediation and $75,000 for public access. So the motion is to rescind $245,000 of the original $575,000. That is what I am making a motion to amend. So my amendment is to rescind, I've got to get this number right, bear with me for a moment here.
That's not, well, let him say.
Can I second for the point of discussion?
Go ahead, Mary.
He hasn't finished it.
Let me get the number in there, which now I've got to, just give me, no, it's not that, hang on. So I'm amending the motion to rescind, hang on, $170,186.
Right,
Which is $75,000 less than what we voted on at the previous meeting.
Makes sense.
it's been made on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion. All those in favor? Aye.
I did.
Kathy did.
That number was 170,160.
$170,186.
Okay. So amended.
All set? No, go ahead, you got time. Take your time.
No.
Okay, next, on the new business. Committee reorganization. So,
I make a motion to nominate David as chairperson.
motion's on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It's done. Now, Vice Chair.
I move to nominate Kathy as vice chair.
Motion's on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Welcome to the,
Yeah.
okay, we got that out of the way. Couple of things I want to get out to the board first. We have a new member, and her name is Kelly Barber. And she was invited to come to this meeting. She has been voted by the Board of Selectmen. She'll be the Selectmen's appointee, the second Selectmen's appointee. So that has taken place. I think we'll give her some more information. The second thing I'd like to say to the board, rather, is there's a playground ribbing cutting for the elementary school at 10 a.m. Saturday, September 10th. You are all invited.
Well, what if more of us than a quorum, then don't we have to
Oh,
post it as a meeting?
I won't be going, I have another event, so.
That's two.
I'm not gonna go.
It's fine.
I'll go.
Kathy, if there's too many of us, we're gonna have
If
to,
there'd
We
be
have to
more
post a
than-
quorum,
we have to
that's
post
correct,
it
she's
before.
right.
I'm not gonna go, so that's cool.
So,
I won't go.
so I have previous commitments,
Yes, I'll go.
okay? Anybody else?
I'll defer to somebody else if they'd like to go.
Well, we can have a few
I
people.
wanted to, but I can't.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
so you
We need
can,
a
there's
couple
9 of us,
people.
we have 4.
We need a
can
couple
go.
people representing the
Yeah.
Community Preservation
I'm
Committee.
happy to go and show up.
Okay. So, Mary, Robert, John?
I have other plans.
Yeah, okay. Joe,
all right.
thank you, sir.
Yeah.
You're a good spokesman. There we
And
go.
that's it, no more.
Okay, so we have 3.
Four.
We have 3.
Three.
Mary, Joe, and Bob.
Oh, I'm sorry, you are?
I'm not.
Oh, I apologize. I'm sorry.
No, he's just making them.
Okay. And that takes care of all that. All right, next. Vote to return CPC project balances, open CPC accounts. So, Jan?
What do you
Kathy,
mean,
I'm
me?
sorry.
Do you want me to do this? Okay.
I can't make motions.
Oh, no,
Oh,
no,
no.
I didn't know if this was this final?
Yeah,
So let's
that's
hear.
fine.
Okay. Okay, first project we have is from the Rec Department, 2018 Article 54, the Brooks Park expansions. That was completed, the balance of $64,334.
You want to do them individually?
I'll do the Rec Department ones together.
Okay,
And
fair
I
enough.
also have Article 2019, Article number 40, which was the lifeguard stand project. It's been completed with a balance of $12,715. So I'd like to make a motion to rescind the 2 completed projects balances of $64,334 and $12,715.
There's a motion on the floor, is there a second? Okay, discussion. Thing I will say is, I've already, the top number of 64 caught my attention. I called the rec director, it is correct. And the reason I haven't gone to the finance director yet with specific requests, because they're still working out free cash. I have invited the finance director to our next meeting, and she will provide whatever information she can to you. And again, when the finance director comes to the next meeting, this will be for CPC only, and I will keep charge of that. So, only questions to the finance director when she's in this room are CPC questions. Okay, moving on.
Can I make a question
ahead.
on this motion? So both of these are going back into the same
Back-
pot?
And
Back
they'd be
into
going
recre-
back into undesignated.
Undesignated.
Undesignated,
Yes.
okay, thank you.
Under recreation.
Yeah.
So there's a motion on the floor, a second. All those in favor? Aye. Ununanimous. Kathy?
Jan, you ready? Mm-hmm. Okay. Under the Cemetery Commission, Cemetery Project 2020, Article number 32, the Pine Grove Cemetery Gravestone Conservation Project. The project has been completed and the balance remaining is $32,100. I'd like to make a motion to rescind the $32,100 from historic.
Second.
Motion on the floor, and there's a second. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Ununanimous. What's that?
Okay. Under the Bikeway Committee, year 2021, Article number 29, the Depot South Crossing Lights. The project was covered by a grant, therefore the balance of $15,000 in its entirety will be returned, and that would be returned under undesignated. 2021, Article number 29, the Old Colony Rail Trail Harwich Chatham Town Border Marker. The balance was $340. So I would make a motion that the two balances, $15,000 and $340, be rescinded under undesignated.
Second.
Motion seconded. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Ununanimous.
That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, discussion, the reports for the following funded projects. I guess we'll jump ahead, bikeways. No, we just rescinded everything. All right. Housing Authority.
We have a written report.
Why don't we jump to the people that are in the room?
Elaine, would you like to speak? Go ahead.
Good evening, Elaine Shovelin, Real Estate and Open Space Committee. And this is in regards to the Six Ponds Great Woods project, the $950,000 that was approved and voted on at town meeting. And you have the report that we submitted. I think it's pretty much covers everything, so unless anybody has a question.
Okay, thank you, Elaine. I'll open it up to the floor. Any questions? John?
I just have one question, which is, have one question about the map, and there's a note in the narrative and on the map as well about a 1.5 acre parcel that ACT has closed on, but the arrow is pointing to a much bigger lot than 1.5 acres. I'm just wondering, which of those little lots there, and I looked at a map of the, the assessor's map, the mass mapper map, and tried to figure out which one of those things was actually an acre and a half and provided east-west passage for wildlife, and I couldn't.
Okay,
decode.
would you please identify yourself for the general public?
Michael Locke, Executive Director of the Harwich Conservation Trust.
Michael, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the Community Preservation Committee. Thank you, Mr. Ketchum, for your question. What doesn't show up on this map, and that's a good point that you lifted up, is that the dirt road, Nathan Walker, bisects what appears to be one contiguous lot, bisects it roughly where the arrow ends. So just north of that arrow point is the 1.5 acres on the north side of Nathan Walker Road. That is the property that Harwich Conservation Trust acquired on April 8th of this year. On the south side is a roughly 4+ acre lot that has a house on it.
I don't have any other questions.
Any other questions for them from the board?
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay. Housing Authority.
I can speak to that if
Okay.
you like, Mr. Chairman.
You have the floor.
Thank you. Not mine, the executive director is on a much-needed vacation. We have been using rental assistance funds as much as we can. We had a slowdown in requests because of COVID, and other organizations got so much funding from other sources that we didn't have nearly as many requests as we usually do. That's now ending, so requests are already starting to tick up. But the other problem we're having, just something I'm trying to work on, it's almost impossible right now for anyone to find an apartment to rent under the maximum allowed rent. You know, whether it's housing authority or anybody else, you're only allowed to give rent assistance up to, say, a $3,000 apartment for a family of 5, a $1,200 apartment for one person. You can't find it. So that's another difficulty in getting the money out there. But as of now, we do have 7 families that we're helping, so that's nice. And so we're hoping we'll be starting to get more applications in, and we're hoping slightly that the boom might.
Don't say it.
Let's just say I'm hoping more people will apply now that the other sources of all that COVID funding is going away.
Okay, Chair's got a question first. The last article that I see from the rental assistance program was 2020 Article 34.
Yeah, no,
32.
well, she has 2 down here, but
Oh, it's 34.
she could have made a typo.
Okay, well, the program is $200,000 and the balance is 0. Is that correct?
Question.
That I don't know. I'll
Okay.
have to.
Well, go ahead, Jan.
Money's been withdrawn from that account, but the project is still ongoing.
Okay,
That's why I consider it an open balance.
all right, that's fine. All right, I'm all set.
Okay, yeah,
Mary?
because I knew we didn't spend it all. But
Same question.
Go ahead, explain it.
I consider it an open balance project. The money has been removed from the treasurer's account. Some projects do
Right.
that,
So that was
some
my
don't.
question.
Yeah.
If we've transferred the money, all of the money over to the housing authority, I understand that, but then the housing authority should be giving us what their balance is left of what they've spent. So I guess that's the missing piece for me in this, like what's left. Is it still I believe when they came in 2020, it was a 3-year program. They only took people on if they had the full amount of money to cover an applicant for the full 3 years of the program, because it was a stopgap program to help people until they got to either Section 8 or some other means. Could only be in the program once. So I guess those are my questions. Is the program still being run the same, and what's been spent out of account? And would we be expecting an application from them this year? Because those would be the questions I'd want to know if we had an application for additional funding into the rental assistance program for next.
Okay, let's take it in 2 different parts. Let's not worry about what's coming in the application.
Right,
Can we in the very beginning, Elizabeth?
So you want to know exactly like where the money went.
What the balance is.
What the
what's
balance,
left.
right?
The balance.
Because presumably if you haven't had a number of applicants, if you're only doing 7 families, total of 22, 26 a month, like, we just want to know what the remaining amount is, how that translates to individual families, how many individual families you could help. Like, if it's a 2-person, like a 5, that would average to, is it 3 families? Is it 2 families for the remainder of the program? I guess that's where my question's coming from.
And we're working off a basis of $200,000.
But I think at the time, they still had some funds available, and they were still helping people. That was aimed at, as I remember, at the time, they only asked for money to get through X amount of people over X amount of years.
I'm going to go with your memory. Okay.
3-year part of the program.
Okay.
So
So you
I'm just
really,
curious as to
request
where
is
that
really in your 3rd year for 23, you want to they're gonna come in front of us eventually for the money.
I was surprised at the time that I hadn't known that there was an open balance.
Yeah.
When they came in, because I realized that was an open balance prior, and I was surprised at what they asked for and that it wasn't more. And at the time, it was just because that was all they could handle, and they would only provide rental assistance if they had 3 years worth of rental for an applicant. They wouldn't take on an applicant, so say it was a 5-year family and they didn't have a 5-person family and they didn't have enough on that apartment for the full 3 years of the program, they wouldn't take it on.
Right.
So
Barry, who was the director of the housing?
it was John at the time.
Okay.
I can't remember John's last name.
Stewart.
Stewart, thank you. And then I think Tracy was his assistant, and I think Tracy took over for him when he retired.
Exactly.
Okay.
Just a point of information.
John?
At the rate of $2,226 a month, you've got almost 8 years, 7.5 years worth of funds there.
I'm sorry, run that by me again?
Yeah.
If all they're spending is $2,226 a month, which
Times
is what
7.
this says, it's between 7 and 8 years worth of funding.
But I think that's where the confusion
gonna
is.
Yeah.
Because that's reporting to us now what they're spending. This month, they're spending much for 7 families.
What happened?
But we need to have an accounting from the deposit. But what was left, presumably they had funds when they still had funds remaining when they requested the 200 under possibly a different article, I would think.
I don't see it
One
here.
might have been spent out, this one might be brand new,
Closed out,
so.
because it's taken out.
Yeah, well, it was taken out too, but this is totally different.
So,
He's gotta get the
No,
balance.
I'm
Why
gonna,
I put it
gonna get
on
the
my-
I'm gonna go with what,
So I'm just saying, I'm sure there was money, because again, they came to us in September or October, like everyone else. They wouldn't have gotten money until June, so there was money there.
I remember
And
that.
I'm not sure that we're getting accounting from that, because, I mean, and it's not a matter of questioning whether they're spending it. It's just a matter of questioning
Tracking the
what's
money.
being spent, to know kind of where those
Right,
monies are.
yeah, and that was applied for and gotten after.
Right, and it's going to vary, obviously,
Before I
because of the
started,
size of
but-
the family and the rent and everything else, but.
Yeah, so I'll have to do a little research, because this happened before I started, but,
Okay, hold, Kathy, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm not really sure that that's, what we do is, take a look at, the balance and what they have left. I think more it's that, if they come before us again, they would give us a full accounting of what has been,
Allocated.
if something is still left in the account.
Well,
And
again,
we
that
would
was my-
ask them for all that information then, but I don't think now we should go back to them and say, like, how you're spending your money.
I
because-
disagree,
well-
because somewhat you're treating them differently than we are our own town departments. If we're rescinding our own town department money, I'm
We're
not
rescinding it
suggesting.
because they're closed, or they've told us that they're
Right.
completed.
But they might decide that the program isn't working, or they need to do something different, or they need to add to it or change it. So I'm just saying that I still counting of what's been spent to date versus, and again, that was my reason for saying, if they're coming in with an action, I'd want to know
Well, of course.
how it's been spent
Right.
to
Of
date
course.
before going forward, and
But as they said to us in last year's report, so money was granted in June of 2020, okay, or July 2020. We were in the middle of COVID.
Absolutely.
So last year, they had a bare minimum. Let's say it was the same as this year.
Yeah.
So under 30,000. This year, under 30,000. And who knows, maybe the third year will be under 30,000 also, but we don't know.
Right.
Okay?
I'm not questioning that.
No,
it's
I
not
know
being
you're
spent
not.
Right,
I'm just saying, I'm not sure, I mean, we're not asking, I thought we decided at one of our meetings that we weren't asking like the Affordable Housing Trust, like exactly how they were spending their money. We give them the money, right? And we wanna make sure that
We
it was in the right places.
What we've said, or what I've said, is they're a trust, they're a legal entity, they get to decide how they spend money, because we give it to them in one lump sum.
Right.
So we're giving it to the housing trust to spend on the rental assistance program.
Right.
So I think we should know how much is spent in over time. But I still think it's apples and oranges, because we do ask the housing authority, the housing trust, how they've spent their money. We've spent countless hours at these meetings asking them why they don't have a budget and where they're spending their money.
It runs, hold it, it runs into the situation that we had with Hinckley's Pond. Money was provided, money was thought to be reallocated, and the reality was, and there were errors that got straightened out. This is the same situation. This account, if the ledger is correct, it reads 0. Now, the money gets transferred to another account or went somewhere else, then I want to know where it is.
Well, it went to their account.
It went to them. It went to them.
Right.
We give them a one lump sum,
Right.
but I'm saying, we give them the one lump sum, I still think there should be some accountability back to us saying that, yes, we've spent this money, or this money lasted us, we expected it to last us 3 years worth of the program, it's gonna last us 5 years of the program because of COVID or because of whatever. And I think that's all well and good, I just,
Okay, so it's a simple request by one of the board members, that's all.
I'm not trying to make a mountain out of a
Joe?
molehill.
So, Elizabeth, back to some of your original comments on the 7 families get 22, 26, correct? And going on now, is that based off of the 22, 26 must be based off the
That's,
AMI of how many family members
yeah,
are in?
that's the total for the 7 families.
That's the total?
Yeah.
Oh my
So each
goodness.
family's getting $300, let's
Yeah,
just say.
that's all, under
Really?
this program, I believe that's all they can get. They get $300 a month for 3 years.
Okay,
And then they're supposed to be on their way with the money they saved by
Simply a
having the
subsidy,
3.
it's a subsidy off of the top
Okay.
of whatever they can find.
so that's some of the rules that you have within your party, right? Within the,
Yeah, I mean, most of our rules, unfortunately, are set by the state.
state, that's what I thought.
We don't,
Okay.
you know, as much as I yell at them, I have gotten nowhere so far. But they get $300 a month for 3 years.
And for the 7 families, it's not necessarily just to go for them to be in affordable housing, but just to be in, to rental
To be
assistance.
housed.
Just rental assistance to be
Right,
housed.
it does not have to be renting a, you know, so-called affordable housing
Yep.
option. You just have to be, if you have a place to give you up to $300 a month to help with your rent.
Okay.
And
I talked to Tracy.
the state rules are that they can only rent up to, you know, an apartment can only cost X amount of money a month, you know.
Okay.
And our rents are just so high
That we're
Welcome to
Getting
Cape
it.
Cod.
The one thing I'm not sure about, because I've just thought about it talking to you people, if the Harwich rules can we set the Harwich rules and say they can rent anything and we'll give them X amount of money?
Right.
So,
Well, that's for a different board,
Yep.
so
Yeah.
let's move on.
Please.
yes, no, so, but I will ask that, and I will ask, because by your questions, it shows, you know, I'm aware of this thing, and I obviously don't understand all the numbers, so I will come back to you with answers, because it helps me figure out what I have to learn.
Yep.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
May I?
Good. Well,
So is, how much do they have that's unencumbered? That hasn't been already allocated?
right.
And that's the right
that's the
number?
right,
you-
that's the right number, exactly.
Thank you, Robert.
Thanks, Bob.
And that's from the 200,000, right? That's not all our money.
Well, it's actually, we want to know of besides the 200 if they had money, unencumbered money going into the 200,000.
Under an earlier article.
Other CPC made
Right.
money, yeah.
Whatever they had received from CPC.
I mean, are they only funded through CPC at this point?
No, I wouldn't think
State?
so.
No, we only get a smidge
Oh, okay.
from the CPC, and that's only to run this Harwich program. So, you know, the other unencumbered money and all that we have, that's from the state.
Okay,
We don't get to play with it.
okay.
I go back to 15, so previous, that'd be more than 3 years,
So
so,
20 was when they came in the
Right.
first time, and I've been on since 18, maybe?
They've come in a number of times.
17
John
or
Stewart has
18.
come in a number of times.
Yeah.
okay. Everybody all set? Is the board okay? Moving on, all right. Penrose LLC. We have,
You read the report?
yep. Any questions about the report? It's all there? Cemetery, next, the cemetery
Can I
commission.
just get one
Go
quick
ahead.
question? I'm not sure if this is a stupid question or not, but if we're gonna give money to this, did anyone ask the question of how many units will get allotted to each town, or is that, there's
No.
No,
sense?
it
None.
doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist, okay.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Go ahead.
We just did it out of, if you see the other towns gave money to.
I did.
We have no in with it.
Okay.
But it's just a gesture of good faith in the hopes that if we ever try to do
Come back.
something, they'll help us.
Yeah,
Well,
Thank
and
you.
Harwich residents would be as eligible as
As
anybody.
anybody else.
Yeah.
right. Just a lot of units.
Okay. Howard Cemetery Commission. Administration. I'm sorry. Article 29 of 2021. Any questions? The information in front of you?
Yep.
Cemetery.
Article 31, 2022. East Howard Cemetery Gravestone Project. Information's in front of you. Okay. Carol?
I just was curious how Article 29 was a recreation allotment.
No veterans.
That's considered recreation?
It's not really
It's in
recreation,
the-
it's undesignated.
It's undesignated.
Yeah,
Because
It
it's
couldn't
not
come
open
under
space,
historic,
And it couldn't come under historic. yeah.
Okay, got it, okay.
so it shouldn't be listed as recreation, really.
So really, it should be undesignated.
Undesignated.
Undesignated. Yeah, it should be the pot.
Got it.
There we go. Go ahead.
I'm looking here at Article 31 and how the bid that, and
Yes.
that's been awarded, 61,890, and the request was for 118,800. I mean, that's significant, that's almost double, or it's half, you know, so, I mean,
But I think,
Why?
I know, and plus we've encumbered this much money, that if it was in a tight year and we would have, you know, maybe could have used the money for something else. I'm just saying that I think that maybe we need to tighten that up maybe in the future. Getting better estimates or,
what was that under cats, historic, you said?
yeah, that was Article 31.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between what the contract has been awarded for and what the request was for that we voted on.
Yeah.
32 was also half.
Yes,
So I seem to recall that we generally asked if it would go out to bid before town meeting so that it could be adjusted downwards if we knew the bid amount.
But that didn't happen.
but it
Clearly
didn't.
didn't happen.
No, it went August 10th.
Right.
So I think, I'm
Hold on.
sorry, John.
John?
Just a question. How can it go out to bid before town meeting? The money hasn't been allocated.
Because you can always, when you go out to bid, you put it subject to appropriation. So you go out to bid and they have the contractor has the understanding that it's subject to appropriation, and you tell them up front, you know, they should hold their,
And they
they
choose to
would
bid
know
with
that
it.
they would have to
Right.
hold their pricing until a later date if they wanted it.
All set, John? Elizabeth?
I think, as I recall, also, remember last year when the construction costs were through the roof? And so everyone was overestimating any costs, any material. That happened at the county too, that you just did want to almost double it because you had no idea what was going to happen, when it was going to happen. And I know that there were many vendors who were not even going to consider anything that was subject to appropriation. That they would say, no, I'm not going to waste my time with this until I know you have the money. So, I think, I seem to recall that, a year ago, man, it was bad.
Elizabeth, nothing's changed.
I know, but people were outwardly fretting more than they are now. They're used to it.
Anything else from the board on this particular subject? Okay, moving on, Town of Harwich. Lowski,
I'm gonna defer to-
2020 Article 31.
I will defer to Robert.
Yeah, to note here is that we have finally narrowed down to 253 properties that will go out to bid to have the MACRIS forms completed and hopefully accepted by the Massachusetts Historical Society for inclusion.
And if I can add, we have had some discussions that the Barnstable County or the Cape Cod Commission was gonna assist with some properties.
Yeah, they are not interested in doing these because it's the historical nature of Form B, and that's not their specialty. It's actually the architectural side. So I think we can use them on other parts of it. For instance, the new 100-year list that we've identified,
Yep.
the update. Now those they could work on.
Anything else from the board? Elizabeth?
I have a quick question, and I don't know if you know it, but we're getting close to 100 years buildings being junk. Is there anything being worked on is this a federal or a state rule that 100-year-old houses have to be?
So it's a town bylaw for demolition delay bylaw that requires any house that is 100 years of age or older that has to come to historic before a demolition permit can be issued.
Okay.
So
That's-
that's where it's coming.
Thank you very much.
And then people smarter than I on my board, like Mr. Doan, put in their expert guidance on what we think about the buildings and what the demolition that's happening.
Right.
So.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not going there. Moving on.
Can I just ask,
Go ahead, Kathy, sorry.
what is the balance remaining in that particular,
Not spent anything, so it's, is it 34.5 was the original, I believe.
is there hope that that will be spent this year?
Yes.
This fiscal year, yeah.
It's now pretty much ready for the procurement process so that they can go out and presumably it will be done on a per parcel.
Yeah.
Kind of basis.
Procurement process through the Town of Harwich?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
All right, anything else? Reports? Okay, old business, discussion, examples of sign recognition for the CPA funding projects. Who would like to lead this discussion? Carol, I'm gonna pick on you.
Well, someone did a nice job pulling this all together. I think Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, I'm gonna pick on you.
Okay. I just went on Google and tried to see what other towns were doing. And this is a combination of what I thought were interesting options for us. The two on the left, you see a town of Littleton. that seems to be just a sign put up somewhere. The one on the bottom left seems to be much nicer, but might be we want to consider if we're doing a permanent structure. You know, it seems like they did a whole park with this. So if we were going to do something that expansive, then maybe we would want a nicer wooden sign. Or this, if we want to go lower than that, it seems like the Hadley CPC dollars at work are just like a big, you know, billboard, not billboard, bill. When you say post no bills on, you know, it's just like a big sticker.
That's what I was gonna say.
And the other one was just an example. But what I put in the middle that I thought was helpful is a lot of places that I then went, I'd see a picture and go and investigate. The towns have various towns CPCs have their own logo. And that makes it easier for them to put their name on a project. Because then all they have to do is ask that their logo be put on the sign that is going to be built for the project. And I thought two of these signs were just cute examples of what, because I think that might be something we want to think about, because we're also talking about Facebook, and we're talking about the brochure and all that. And if we have a logo this is the Harwich CPC, and get people to understand that that's the Harwich CPC logo, that makes branding easier. So that's why I threw those in, and those were my thoughts.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Carol?
I really like the idea of a logo. I think that's a great idea. I guess, and I remember this discussion, I guess not at the last meeting, but the one before, and I think it's a good idea. I think, though, I wonder how it applies in all cases, like even just looking at the lovely examples in the brochure, I don't think we'd want to put a sign at Muddy Creek. You know, I mean, I think people get upset sometimes when you put signs in natural places. Brooks Park is a good example of where that might work, but you know, that's a facility where CPC maybe helped with the lighting, but not other things. So how do you make it clear that the contribution is for what it was for? So I guess I'm just trying to think through, we'd have to have some guidelines, some policies for when it's appropriate to put a sign in. You know, if other funders are involved, you know, just being a little bit careful about that too.
Mary?
So that raises a second question for me. Is CPC going to fund the signs out of administrative funds, or is the expectation that the recipient is going to fund the sign? Because I think somewhat there's quality involved there too, right? Bob, I don't remember, what did they put across the street at the library?
There's a little sign.
Wooden sign that's on the corner.
I've seen metal signs, you know. Pleasant Road Beach has a sign from years before when the beach was done. I tend to think, to Carol's point, different projects are gonna naturally be benefited from a different type of signage, so.
Hold that thought. Kathy?
Well, it'll be interesting to see what the playground has to offer.
Mhm.
So I'm sure that there's a sign at the playground. If you read the paper today said, you know, ribbon cutting ceremony, you know, major fundraising was done by the PTO at the school for $80,000, and the town contributed $500,000. So it'll be interesting to see if there is signage, and if the signage says anything and attributes it to, you know, CPA funding. Be
Which are
nice.
taxpayer dollars,
Yeah, exactly.
right? So.
Yeah.
And I think that's, from my perspective, the signage that's what it's all about, so that people understand where their money's going.
Right. Well, it goes back to the whole question of how do we get people to understand what the CPA is, where the funds come from, and what it can do for the community at large. Where do we start with that?
How old is the CPA Act now?
Oh, for
04.
Was it, okay, I couldn't remember when it started.
Carol.
I think maybe we could engage applicants and project proponents to help think through how or if or in what ways signage would work for their project. I mean, I think that might be something we would want to have as a regular part of our discussion with them, because they're going to know who else is involved, they're going to know the ins and outs of the project, and maybe ask them to propose to us how to acknowledge the CPC, whether signage is appropriate, if so, how, what, where, or some other idea they have, you know, that might utilize a logo or, you know, what have you, on their website, or, you know, there might be other things they could do, but maybe make what we ask applicants to respond to.
It's a good idea.
Not to throw a grenade in the room and run, but
But I'm gonna do it anyway.
I was reminded by a member of the Finance Committee that essentially the CPA is not the funding source. It's the taxpayers of the town of Harwich
Right.
through the CPA. I went with Kathy looking at some things that were from other towns, and one really caught me. It was from Bill Ricker. It says this project received funding assistance from the citizens of Bill Ricker through the Community Preservation Act. It's a nice thing, it's to the point. And anything that we develop, in my opinion, we should have an acknowledgement to the town of Harwich on the sign. That encapsulates it. I don't know, I'll pass it around, you folks can take a look at it. So, just my thoughts. John?
Yeah, I just wanted to add my support for the idea of developing a logo. And my thought about that is that when developing a logo, and it's for branding purposes, so it's one thing is what you're talking about, David, which is the
No,
message.
I understand, yep.
But the other thing is just to create something that establishes instant recognition. And it's not just about the words that are on there, it's about the shape and the color scheme. So my thought is that whatever logo would be developed would be something that could be rendered as a sign of this, like the Cackle Hill sign here, but also as a smaller handbill, that's not the right word.
I know,
but
I can't-
a smaller thing that you could put on an object that is way smaller than a 10-acre plot of land or something like that. You know, that you could put as part of the component of the bridge over the Muddy Creek, for example, that would be too big and too large for people to object, but it would still be there, so the message would still be there. And it could also be rendered on web pages of organizations who received the funding. Anyway, that's my thought.
When you're saying logo,
Instead of a town seal, they're saying come up with a seal or some,
when you're saying logo, I have envisions of something that's on the back of someone's T-shirt.
Well,
oh, but I think
Yeah.
if you look at
Not,
this,
Yeah,
not,
no,
not
I
to,
mean, it
to
could
cut to the
be.
chase.
Yeah,
It's-
I would-
like, this is a logo.
Yeah,
Right, these
This
two
is
of
a
them,
logo.
both are Somerville,
It's just,
interestingly.
it's the branding for, so all this, presumably all the Somerville CPA has that rectangular symbol on it. And it represents all four aspects, right?
Like,
Hopefully.
I mean, the Harwich Conservation Trust has one, don't they? Have a little, like,
Yeah, and that wouldn't be the only, that would just be on all the signs. I think we still need the wording like you pointed out.
Absolutely.
That's the important part, but the logo should be on everything we sponsor,
So it'd be all the same.
all the same.
And I do think that the lack of signage has also, is part of the reason that people
Right.
still don't fully know
Where the tax dollars are
where
going.
those tax dollars are going. Or what we do, just period. And we funded an awful lot of projects
Has,
since 2004.
has any of the board members put together a logo before? Because you're talking to a layperson here. I don't have a clue to develop something like that.
If I may, sir,
Go ahead, Karen.
well, I mean, I think, you know, I've worked with a number of graphic designers who have done that, and usually, you know, people sort of do this who are designers, and then you tell them a little bit about your organization and kind of what you do, and some options, and so I think, and there may be a local designer who'd be willing to do that on a pro bono basis, or I don't know, or if they could be hired by the CPC to do that.
Joe,
Those are the kinds of things in my own.
I found his page, and he had it on.
Kathy?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I would like to see us work on, you know, the recognition of what the CPA
You know.
is, what it funds, what it does for the community
That
before
says
we
the word.
come up with a logo.
But I
I
think
think
the
a
logo
logo
can,
could support it, but
That
they don't,
shows
no
that
one
they-
knows now.
Somerville is
They,
using their logo.
I'm not sure how we would, it'd have to be an all-out campaign.
but I think some of these logos do that though, right? They've got all of our,
Exactly.
they've got our buckets. They've got the recreation, they've got the historic preservation, they've got the open space. So, and I don't think making a logo is necessarily has to be a large expense.
No.
It can be fairly reasonable.
I can tell you that the triangle, lots of CPCs are using this, not triangle, the
Yeah.
diamond.
The diamond shape.
Lots of people use that. There's one logo that has a kid on a swing in front of two different kinds of houses. A lot of CPCs use. So I think they might be public domain, and if they're not, they certainly give us a good idea of what to go. But Joe just handed me something that's got the perfect thing that we're all talking about, I think. Because you mentioned what it said in Billerica, and we're talking about the sign, and Somerville, which is one of the signs, you'll see they have a sign that says the citizens through the CPA with the logo on the bottom, the town logo and the little CPC logo.
Okay. Where do we want to go?
So
Carol?
I would move that we seek a proposal from a graphic designer to develop some proposals or bids for graphic design services to develop some concepts for a logo, incorporating the ideas that have been discussed tonight in terms of the simplicity and the acknowledgement of taxpayer contributions to bring back to the committee for consideration.
So I would think it would only need to be quotes, 3 quotes, I would
Three
think,
quotes,
right?
right? Yeah, sure.
And second, for purpose of discussion. The other thing is we could try it ourselves. I mean, I'm sure John is probably thinking of ways to play it, and I sort of am.
I'm not a graphic designer.
You
I
know.
will not volunteer to.
Well, there's also there's a company out there called Fiverr that's a bunch of graphic designers that you throw in the concept out to, and they all come back. And you could get something very inexpensive, you could get something a lot more expensive, but, you know, I have a friend that used it for a company that she started and got a really cute logo for a very reasonable price, so.
What is it, Fiverr, F-I-V?
Fiverr.
F-I-V-E-R?
Something like,
Two Rs, F-I-V.
I think it's got a couple of R's on it, yeah.
So again, I'm a fish out of water here, folks.
You had a motion
Carol?
and a second.
Mary?
You had a motion and a second.
Yeah, I need you to finish it for
What
me.
that?
It went on, and I didn't get the last bit, I apologize.
I
So what
guess
I have is you move to seek a proposal from several graphic designers to incorporate.
So, let me rephrase then. I move to seek 3 bids from graphic design firms to provide design services for a logo appropriate for signage and other applications that incorporates the acknowledgement to taxpayers, and to bring those quotes back to the committee for consideration.
And I'll amend my second.
So again, there's a motion and do I hear a second?
Yeah, I seconded the first one, so I amend my original second to second this.
Okay, motion is discussion. Who's gonna seek?
I'm happy to draft, a paragraph that describes what we're looking for. I'm happy to circulate it if any, I don't know, can we do that? Can I circulate it for comment? Can people just send me? Or, the process would be you write a paragraph that's what you're looking for, and then you email it to firms, and you ask them to give you a quote. And,
That, we're gonna be talking later about the brochure. I think that, I wish I could find it now, the paragraph that's in the there's one side of the brochure, Bob, help me out here, where we use 2 quotes from the, Community Preservation Act. What and, why. Actually, I would just do what. And then you could take that and then you just say, list of what we do. The historic, what is it? Historic preservation, recreation, housing,
Open space.
and open space. So you give them those 4 categories. Say we want a logo that incorporates those with,
Now we're getting 9.
yeah, so I
That's,
think at this
I'd
stage,
rather leave
So-
this, let's leave it open.
right, list the things that we do with the what.
right,
And
so,
then they can decide what they,
yeah, but I think at first we would just get the quotes. The quotes won't be the designs, they're just gonna be
Exactly.
the quotes.
right.
And then we would pick one and say, please develop 2 or 3 concepts, or they would tell us, what their process is, and then we would bring those design elements back to review it as a committee. So.
That
that's-
works. Will you be willing to, I don't want to make it part of the motion, so let's just go with the motion first.
Okay.
So there's a motion on the floor, it's been seconded, all those, discussion's over, all those in favor? Aye. Request from the chair, would you take this responsibility on?
Yep.
Okay,
And if anyone has a firm that they've worked with that they like, or would like me to send the quote to, or, the request for quote, please let me know. Just send me their contact.
all right, thank you. All right, next, examples of Facebook ideas highlighting CPA, CPC, CPA projects. So, who would like to lead this discussion?
A suggestion,
Mary?
I think we could each take one project over the last, one completed project over the last few years, and if each of us does a paragraph, somebody can put it up on either the webpage or wherever.
Kathy,
is this, I mean, I wasn't sure how we left the Facebook discussion last time, back in June, but, is this the library's Facebook page that we're talking about? Because that's how that was our
Yes.
discussion last,
Yes.
2 months ago.
Right.
Okay, so what you're suggesting is that once a month, or however I don't know how often I'm not on Facebook, so I'm not a good
Post.
representative of this, but do they post like weekly, monthly, daily? Okay.
Well, my understanding is
All of the
a
above?
couple of the board members were gonna put together a bunch of units, whatever those units represented, bring it to the board, have the board vote on it, and then send it to the library. That's what I recall.
That was not,
What you're suggesting is that everybody
We could spread
takes
the wealth.
something in their area.
You could spread the wealth. I'm saying,
Mr. Chairman.
there.
So
John?
I think what was suggested by Virginia last time was maybe start with monthly postings. Let's not overwhelm ourselves by trying to
Right.
post something different. And I mean, clearly none of us are really prepared right now to propose something specific, but maybe we should make it a specific target for the next meeting to come, for people's proposals, a single proposal. Each of us come with a single proposal for a paragraph, as you were suggesting. And photograph, I think on Facebook, you probably want something graphic like a photograph. So a project that would catch the eye in a Facebook post. I've never looked at what the library does with Facebook things, because I mostly Facebook, but,
I'm just thinking timely ones, obviously the
Right.
playground is opening,
well, that would be a great one.
and you've got, the beaches are closing, but the lifeguard chairs, a simple picture of a beach with the lifeguard
Solitary
chairs.
lifeguard chair.
Right?
And,
Which most of us smile at.
Reminding
these
us
days.
what's coming. Oh, God.
right.
well, I don't want to have a duplication of efforts, though,
Okay.
John. So if anybody has something that is near and dear to their heart, that they write a paragraph on and bring, we should know. Like,
I want to do Roger's statuary that was
Oh,
just
that would be
completed.
fantastic.
oh, okay, that's a great one.
That's a perfect,
There's one that Bob's gonna do.
so that's a long-term article that's beautifully finished.
Elizabeth, go ahead.
I did also try to do as much scouting of other CPC Facebook activity, and most of it is just, don't forget, deadline Friday. It's not, that the other towns that do have CPC Facebook really don't use it for anything fun. It's just sort of notifications. So I think as we're getting started, it's great to have something fun to get us out there. But we also might just want to worry about, like if we redo the brochure, then we put a picture of the brochure and say, hey, we have a new brochure for, or something, that it doesn't have to be something work intensive, I guess is what to say.
Okay, so just, I'm listening to what the board's saying, and in all probability, the best project to start with would be the playground. Because that's what's happening right now in the paper. So, is there anybody willing to write a paragraph about the playground? Kathy? Thank you, okay. There's a
I'll take
start.
some pictures for you.
Okay.
Mary?
I seem to recall, forgive me if I'm wrong, I seem to recall that Kathy perhaps at one point, total of what the CPA has funded over
It's
the
on the
course.
website.
It's on the website.
Right, but I'm saying that might be a good kind of in-between projects. It might be a good post to kind of catch people's eye as to how much taxpayer funding has gone into X amount of dollars over
Like,
42
you mean,
CPA
like,
projects.
focus on a particular year, or are they thinking in its entirety? Because no one's gonna read it. They're not gonna read it in its entirety because
No, but a cumulative total,
Oh,
just
total.
a blast. It's a big number,
oh yeah, it is.
so that big number,
You read those numbers at the Board of Selectmen meeting, correct?
right, so that number.
I'm gonna read them again.
CPA has funded
Mm-hmm,
this many millions of dollars
right.
to fund 87 community projects in the last
Mm-hmm.
18 years.
But it,
Your tax
See-
dollars at work. Check out the CPC website, or the Town of Harwich CPC website for more details.
Would you write that down or shoot me an email, please?
Yes.
but that might
Just-
backfire.
Yeah,
You know, because if you say we've spent, in 18 years, we have spent $24 million of our taxpayer money, you're gonna get all sorts of people saying, well, I didn't want that, well, I didn't want that, well, why do
Elizabeth-
they get to spend our tax
Elizabeth.
money?
every, I go before the selectmen as chairman of this committee. And every year, I tell them exactly what the numbers are. So they've heard it over and over
The
and over.
select board has heard it over. and
Well,
over.
it's televised and it goes out to the general.
The general public has no idea what happens in this town.
But they
They do read Facebook, so it just makes me nervous. I'd be afraid of backlash.
Carol,
Yeah, my experience with, you know, these kinds of social media posts is what is to make it eye-catching. Very, very, very little text. I tend to think, sort of what Elizabeth's saying is, I don't think it's that important to focus on the exact number. I think it's like, this project, did you know? Who's gonna use this now? Who's gonna benefit? This is gonna, you know, the school children of this school, or the, you know, some historical fun fact associated with a building that we've helped to renovate, or, you know, whatever. But I would tend to stay away from the numbers and just focus on the asset to the community, who uses it, why it's important, and a big picture. And funded by, you know, CPA, or, you know, whatever the tagline is going to be. So there's some consistency to that message, but focus on the value and the benefit, not the number.
as chair, I absolutely agree with what you're saying. Just understand that information that's provided to the selectmen is there,
It's all there.
so.
If somebody wants to dig it up, they can get it. But I tend to think, you know, that what Elizabeth said has some merit, that, you know, a lot of people say, oh, that's great investment, and a lot of people say, wait a minute, you know, that's way more than I think that should be, or what have you, so.
Well, it's interesting because some people still haven't made the connection that the 3% on the levy goes to the CPC. They think it's a sale of the real estate. That's not correct. That's Boston's, what they developed to give back. So, anyway, I'm sorry. I'm a numbers person. I'm into that.
That sort of
moving on.
leads to the brochure.
Just one question, where I missed June. Was the library gonna put it on their Facebook, or were they gonna manage a Facebook?
No, they're
page?
on their Facebook. They said they get a lot of hits and they were more than willing to resend them the information.
And we can see how that goes,
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
then later discuss
Yeah.
whether we
We-
want to manage a RPC with
Okay.
Facebook page ourselves, but we're just, this is dipping our toes in the water, right?
Sure is. Kathy?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two things. I agree with what you just said and everything. It's interesting because the Community Preservation Coalition as a whole has been sort of grappling with some of this too. And to that point, they put out a flyer, okay, which I can pass around, I've got plenty of them, that gave an overview of the Community Preservation Act. And what it did was it sort of synopsized how many have been created over X amount of time. How many acres have been preserved over X amount of time. And, you know, on one hand, we might want to, we could do something similar, in Harwich, you know, kind of, you know, but that's if we wanted to sort of exploit that information. You know, and perhaps listening to this conversation, we might not want to. I mean, you know, you might have people who don't want to know that we've preserved 50 acres in the town of Harwich. And then you've got the people that do want to know that we've preserved that much. So I don't really know. I asked the coalition to use this, like, on one side their stuff and on the other side our stuff, the town, and they said no.
Of course they did.
Of course, they said no because this was their thing, so, and I
We're
get
only a
that.
member.
Would they-
We're only a
Right.
paying
Oh,
member.
we're a card-paying
Right.
member.
Exactly, we're only a paying
So,
member.
but we
That's
could
right.
adapt this, I'm just saying, it's just another to kind of get the information out there.
Would they let us post this?
That we can post, because it says on the bottom that it's from the coalition.
Right, so
Right.
we could, you're allowed to, you know, share posts, so we could post this and say, as an overview of what CPAs do. Because I think it's okay when it's this general. Do you know what I mean? 265 billion, well, people know we didn't spend
their permission before you-
265
Yeah, no.
billion.
Well, I think that's why they put it on the website, so people
So
can use it.
keeping it this
But I don't
general
get-
makes it look like, wow, CPCs are great. If we get specific about what we do, they could be like, wait, you've spent like $265 million and we have 18 playgrounds and that's it? Do you know what I mean? I mean, on Facebook, it is not a nice world.
No.
The only reason I'm on it is because I have to know constituents are.
And,
But remember,
and you
that's
folks
not
are
a nice
trying to
place.
draw us into this?
Yeah, seriously.
What the hell?
So here's my comment on that. There are a minute number of people that comment. The vast majority interpret and aren't keyboard warriors. So, you know, I tend to not worry about that. I understand both of your points. And I see the benefits I see the benefit in not doing it. I also see the benefit in doing it because I think
Well,
that's an awful lot of
isn't-
that's awful lot of money that hasn't been included in a, you know, an additional
The one thing,
budget.
I'm sorry. The one thing I would say is, you don't react to fear.
Yeah.
That's a mistake. So, when you go forward with a positive attitude. And quite frankly, I think you hit it on the head, Carol, with the playground, how you present it. Start with that. It's positive, it's something that the community knows. And for the people that digress about taxes, well, guess what? We all pay them. You don't go to town meeting, you don't vote. You do meeting, you vote, you know what you're voting for, hopefully. Anyway, that'll get me in trouble.
Mr. Chairman,
John?
can we empower Kathy and Carol to just put together a Facebook post, so we're not waiting until October to put the, once it's no longer news in October? It's hot right now. I think it would be a good idea to just go live with it, and I think Kathy and Carol can.
You don't need a motion. What's the what's the feeling of the board?
I think
I
that's,
don't need to wait.
I think that's a great idea, if they're willing to do
Kathy
it.
can
So,
laugh all she
we're
wants,
just
but
volunteers.
Right.
Well,
If-
you also
if you're-
volunteered,
well-
Mary, to take some photographs.
I said I'll take photographs.
Yeah,
It's all right.
so,
All right, we have a start.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have a start. Carol?
Just another thought, if there's any type of video, I don't know if there's video of the event or video of, I don't know, I guess.
I would imagine they're gonna do a drone video.
It's always a good thing to have a link to video on a post. So anyway, just a thought.
Ooh, complicated.
oh, on Facebook?
God.
I-
glad you're not on Facebook.
I
wish you were all here when Kathy put
never
this
clicked
together.
the link to it.
I wish you all could have seen Kathy putting this together with her cut and paste.
Paste.
It was
No,
beautiful.
literally cut and paste.
She literally did
I
cut and
cut
paste
and paste
onto a piece of paper.
In every sense of the word.
It's
every sense of
fabulous.
the word.
Okay.
It was advanced.
It was fabulous.
We've got a good start. I want to go to Yarmouth Affordable Housing. Elizabeth.
Yes. Joy, rapture. Yeah, I'm sorry couldn't do this last time. Sorry. Here it is. Yarmouth. And I checked in with Mary, it's Mary Wagon is in, deals with the CPC.
Right, we've met.
Affordable Housing Trust.
Yep.
And I checked in with her again today to see if anything new. So the way it works in Yarmouth is they usually get the CPC's entire 10% bucket. And then they will sometimes ask for even more out of an unreserved fund if they have a special project. So they just ask for the 10% money to do with what they want, but then if they say, oh, but we really need a study on this site, X amount of money, then they'll ask for extra money from the unreserved on top of it. So for example, this year, they were only, I think it was $200,000, but they upped the request to $240 because they wanted to make sure Mary was going to get her, which was another question asked. Her salary is paid half by CPC funds and half by grant. And the Affordable Housing Trust only gives them updates once a year, unless something extraordinary happens. They want to come in and crow, we finally did it, or if the CPC asks them. Right now they have $2 million in the bank, but it's been approximately allocated, that $2 million. So $1.2 million allocated for buy down projects, $400,000 for redevelopment of, they took 2 of those Route 28 motels and are turning those into housing. So there's $400,000 allocated for that, but she thinks it might be finished without needing extra $400,000.
One's built, one's still being.
Yeah, and then they're using $400,000 they're giving to Habitat to buy land for a Habitat project. So that's where the Affordable Housing Trust is allocated. And the way they set up their Affordable Housing Trust, this is what I think is it. So their chair is also the town administrator. Their vice chair is also the select board member. Then they have 3 at-large members, but historically, it's not written in stone, but they have always had the 3 at-large members be 1 from CPC, 1 from the Housing Committee, and 1 from the Planning Committee. And I think that
Makes a lot of sense.
makes a lot of
That's
sense.
what happens here.
So that's my report about Yarmouth.
Did they give you any idea, or did you see any number? I'm looking for a total they have allocated to the housing trust, a total amount.
They started.
10%.
$2 million in the bank,
Yeah, but I mean in totality,
The whole time?
yes,
Oh,
inception.
It's easy to find out.
Yeah, I know.
And then when was it, the inception?
It's really pretty
I'll be calling you.
So when they ask
Okay.
for that money, Elizabeth, they don't have to explain exactly what they're gonna use the 250 for, they're just putting it in the bank?
No.
Okay.
Because again, the trust is its own legal entity.
It's a-
and that was the point behind setting up a trust, so.
I find it interesting that Habitat goes through the trust
I know,
and not them, because they have the ability to go themselves.
oh, yeah.
So that's really interesting.
Yeah, that,
No, if they I mean, I guess they could, but if they're allocating the entire bucket plus some to the trust, presumably that's
that's
and I
why,
don't know whether that's in a bylaw or whether that was in a, that's just traditionally what they do every year, or whether it's a standing.
yeah, that's,
I'm assuming that it's voted,
traditional.
I think it's voted every year, I'm trying to remember.
yeah,
see the
they
article.
do vote it every year, so I guess the CPC could one year decide no. But it's just, like I said, they're big on keeping their words of historically, you know, the three members of the, and giving the money.
I also seem to recall that when we were originally talking about this setup, Ally Sabatino was still our, and we had the woman from the state in talking to us about the whole setup. I seem to recall them telling us that, for example, P-Town had made the decision to always put 20%, like they had decided
Right.
20% went to affordable housing, and that went every year. So
Right.
their 10% could be the same way.
Kathy?
Yeah, has the housing coordinator position been filled?
I haven't heard it hasn't been discussed. The last thing they filled was, Monday night's meeting was the engineer,
Right, right.
so,
So when, at our October meeting, we'll be getting an update from the Housing Trust?
yes.
Okay, and at that point, we'll maybe get an answer to that and take it from there.
Right.
And
Well, if
also
they're gonna
whether
be
we're-
submitting a written report, then I'm gonna make I'll send an email
Well, we should be able to get to rescind.
Right.
to Joe asking.
Plus,
I already sent a request, so I'll send this now.
Okay, got it.
plus, we would like to know about the decision of the funds for the housing coordinator
The
from
fi-
last year. And also the article that was passed at this year's town meeting, which duplicates those efforts. So I would think that we would like to have an update on that, at least I would.
All
we get-
of the open
Yeah,
trusts, anything since they started, it's still open, and I asked them for it.
send a second request.
Second request is about the filling of the position. Anything else? Because I
And
did already ask them for what you're saying.
They told us.
when did you send that request? Roughly, do you have an idea? Just when you
August.
started?
Well,
Okay.
I sent half
Right,
September,
right,
half
right.
October, 3-4 weeks ago.
Update us,
I'll resend.
thank you.
Yeah. Didn't they say to us the last time we spoke with them that the original 50,000 we gave them last year was used to pay for their part-time contract with
They didn't have anybody
CDP.
last year.
No,
had
they
Belinda.
haven't had any, you're
They
right.
had Belinda from CDP, and I thought they told us
That was
that's where our
before.
money went.
They
That
were
was
still
the
using the
prior
money from
fiscal year.
before.
Yeah,
Right, and then, right, that's where the first money we gave them for a person
Right,
was.
but this,
So
that,
then this money we gave them this year is supposed to be given back because they changed it to hiring a full-time person in the regular budget.
right, but there's also the 1,000 from last year was not
We
spent.
funded them for 4 years.
Yeah.
1 year we didn't, 1 year I think we didn't fund coordinator because they didn't ask,
right.
right? I think.
I don't remember.
I think the year you were off. The 1 year that you were
You were
off
off.
might have been the one that you were off. Because I seem to recall them not asking.
Yeah, I don't remember. But I just know that there's $50,000 to go back, and then there's also that last article that we just
They have
voted on.
100.
That's $100,000.
They have 100
Yeah,
for coordinator.
so,
And some was used at, some of it was used to pay CDP, I just don't know.
that was previous,
years.
previous.
Yeah, no,
Prior years.
100
Right.
is sitting there,
Right,
Right.
not.
So we've given and we have.
You were right.
150.
Yep. Okay.
See?
Yeah, is follow-up project still in progress?
We tabled that last. In June, we tabled it.
Can we table it again?
That's what I'm thinking.
What the question is, what to
John.
add to the webpage?
Projects.
Well, we had a discussion, and I think at the time it was not a straightforward discussion, because there was more than one item mixed up in the discussion, but specifically about whether we should be explicitly listing, along with the nice, complete enumeration of all the funding that Harwich CPC has forwarded to town meeting and gotten voted through, is just a live summary of outstanding projects that are still in progress, have not been closed, have not spent all their money, and have not had balances rescinded.
Right, and I think the debate was whether or not the department heads were gonna take a beating for not expending whatever they needed to expend, or other, Jesus. Anyway,
Was this part of the conversation of whether to post the status reports?
no, separate,
Okay,
separate. It's
why it was a
it's just what John described.
Okay.
I mean, that's another topic, it's not on the agenda. I mean, I'm all for, myself, maximum transparency.
This is open
Uh,
projects.
And we've got the vehicle for doing that, it's a webpage, posting, I mean, Jan already has that information, right?
Yes,
You keep a living document with, do I understand that correctly, with
So
open
this
projects?
little page is the open projects for
Right.
tonight's meeting.
And it can be,
Then, the project status reports that we received some tonight, they're always a part of the minutes, so they're already online. They'll be posted online with the minutes.
so
Just have to
what
go
it,
through the minutes to
what-
find them, is that?
Yeah,
What it
you
boils down-
describe it on
the
and then
last
attachments.
time we discussed, the debate was whether or not we were gonna put individuals in a situation where it's gonna push them one way or the other for their expenditures because the time allotment has been gone over, or they haven't done the procedure through the procurement process. All those things we discussed. I thought we had formed a conclusion, but apparently not. So I'll open the discussion up to the board. We'll start with Joe.
I'm discussing now. I'm so sorry.
All right, hold on. John, please.
simple, just posting on the webpage a list of the open balances.
Okay.
That's all. We don't have that right now. I
Oh.
mean, we have it internally, but it's not published. It's
Why
not
do we have
available.
to post the balance?
So my only concern with the open balances
Go ahead.
is that we don't necessarily get timely information on what's encumbered
Right.
or what's been spent, so that could be a little deceiving. You know, they could be, a contract could be signed that we just don't know about yet, or, because we get 6-month updates.
So if it's just a list of projects, does that address your concern, Dave?
Yes.
So no numbers, just list the
Right.
projects.
List.
So list a project that says just still,
You say
Progress?
current, in progress.
Project in progress versus closed or
Yeah.
completed.
The amount
Up to that
voted.
date.
Well, I'm just thinking
Well,
even
yeah.
just have the amount voted
Yes.
and open,
And open.
not the balance, because that could be shifting, but just the amount voted and open
Yeah.
project. Yeah.
ATM, article number,
Yeah.
blah, this is
I
the
think that's
amount
handy.
approved,
Yeah.
and what the project is.
The only problem with the ATM is that you're gonna have, we have some of those articles that had 6 different line items because
right,
certain years, they grouped them together.
a couple of years they did, yeah,
So,
sure.
it's gonna have to be ATM Brooks, or ATM 22 Cemetery Project or whatever.
See, the problem with this is, you go into it, so we don't want it like this, is what you're saying.
Well, I think the balance, so,
No, about the year. I don't think you want it like that. We don't have,
but there are some that are like, look at, if you look at 2021, Article 29, it's Article 29-1, Old Colony Rail Trail, Article 29-3, Depot Street Cross. So you have the amount and the balance.
So, what I would suggest
Closed.
is that we would have a list, and the first part is just the name of the project. And then you list which article it was, and if there's multiple projects that came under the same article, then there's multiple projects in the list that have the same article number on them.
Which is how Jan has them on there.
Yeah, except just take the balance off.
Take the balance off, yeah.
Take the balance off, yeah, right.
I'm outvoted.
but
It's,
you've got the three,
But why? What concerns you about the original vote?
I'm not a member.
go ahead.
3 years before it gets revisited. And what we've got here is 2018. We've got projects that are open in 2018.
The 3 years is a guideline for us
Us.
to decide
Right.
whether we
It's a
want to.
choice.
Okay,
It's not a mandatory, it's a we expect you to spend your money in a timely fashion.
Although it may raise more questions for some people than others, I mean, that's gonna be the case, though.
okay.
Yeah, no.
But like the Rogers statues,
Yeah.
nobody could have anticipated how long that would have taken and what a huge undertaking that was.
And COVID contributed.
Right.
Right, on top of it.
But if people are gonna
Really?
get that far into the weeds with what we're providing them, then I mean, they could come for open discussion and ask the questions, I guess.
There you go. There's Facebook. Blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah.
Yeah,
So why read it and why bother? Can't let it
I mean,
bother
I
you.
don't know if we're providing fodder for,
yeah.
I mean, what's, I guess we need to discuss, what's the benefit of listing these on the website? It's just transparency?
Transparency.
Okay, and what's the detriment?
I don't know how many people are gonna go click through and read it,
Yeah.
but we can at least say it's out there.
But transparency, can't we just say open projects
That's-
and list them? And that's it, and people know, oh, okay, great. That's
That
what's
makes
being
sense to
worked
me.
on
I
now.
think that's
Not
what
put
we
any
just said,
numbers
though.
down
I
at all.
wouldn't-
Yeah, you're exactly
That
right.
just
Right, no
raises-
numbers,
I'm
no,
either way on this
no-
one. I think it was voted at town meeting, so it's
warrant
it's in the annual
numbers.
report somewhere.
They know it's
Right.
there
If they wanna know what year and
Well,
what
it's on the other
warrant
list,
it
too.
was.
List that's on the website.
on the website.
No, but on the front of the webpage, just say, look at these great things that are happening now, and look at the things we did in the past. That's how you get people's attention. The minute you start putting, the minute anybody like pops on our website and sees warrant 2022,
Article 54,
Article
yeah.
54, they're gonna go, oh, never mind.
Unless you're a member of,
FinCom.
no, I was gonna say of another, say, Facebook group that might wanna take issue with it. I'm just,
They do,
Yeah, they do.
ultimately.
Right,
do.
and they
I mean,
can
it's
find
just-
it,
we're
but.
trying to but our whole goal here is to, inform people
We-
of what the Community Preservation Act does and
But
what
you
it
don't have
does
to-
for the community.
I don't disagree with that, but you don't have to beat yourself up over it.
Right.
You provided all the information you possibly can. So just end it with open balance.
No.
Just
What?
open project.
No, I'm sorry, open, yeah.
Projects, yeah,
Could I suggest something?
no money.
Because you told me I could say something,
Go
so I'm gonna
ahead.
say something
Go
again.
ahead, Jen.
How about, you know how we have, like what Liz was saying, we wanna show what we're doing. This shows what's not been finished. Combine the two. Make one whole list and do every year and say the projects, and then have like,
Completed or
Whatever.
open?
yeah,
Completed, no.
So taking,
still in progress. And so they look at the list, they see all
No,
the
it's
things.
it's cannon fodder.
Oh, okay.
It's cannon fodder.
Just a nice.
No, Mary, if you, Elizabeth,
I'm fine with whatever the board decides. I really, I'm not gonna,
all right, so
it's not
the
a
question
battle
is,
I choose.
Robert?
I'm
I
choosing
mean,
to fight over it.
I like the
don't
idea
care
of
either
just
way.
having the project, and I'd call them in-progress projects as opposed to open.
Yeah.
Open
Progress,
or something, yeah, like that.
Okay, that works.
progress and completed.
You can
Yeah.
just say current.
Or current, you could do that.
Yeah.
That'd be fine too.
Is the board comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay, John? You got your marching orders.
okay,
I'll send this to you.
Okay, but
Well-
question, so do you list something like the rental subsidy program as a project that's open when it's really not open? The money's already been encumbered.
But it's in progress, we're
It's a
still
current-
getting, it's a current
Okay.
project.
I think it's probably not on Jan's list because. it's
No,
not-
it is.
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Just asking the question.
Anything that I haven't
Semantics.
taken money
I
back from,
I mean,
or I heard that it was completed, is an open project in my book. But that's just what I'm gonna report.
Okay, that's fine. So we're in agreement. All right. Anybody want anything on the next agenda?
What about the,
Did we miss that?
Yeah.
Okay,
that was,
I'm looking at, okay, my apologies. Other, good.
so Elizabeth and I were charged to seeing if we could update the brochure before we print them again. And basically, I think, as far as I was concerned, I think the verbiage, or as far as what, the how and why was okay, although I heard some suggestions tonight to maybe change
Right.
it. But date basically funded projects, and I've added a bunch in yellow here that could be added, but maybe we should take some off, because there was a picture below this that got pushed off the page, because I have so many topics here. If there's suggestions of removing some that maybe could be added, and we definitely want to update pictures, like, for instance, the element, the to the right, that should be a new picture of the new playground instead of the other playground. And like on the front, I'd love to get a picture of the Brooks Park with the new light, I don't know if I can or not. And-
That is the new playground.
No, it isn't. No, it was the old one. I said,
Wait till you see the new one,
Yeah.
and then you'll understand why I just said that.
Yeah, the new one's apparently
It's like
awful.
much nicer than this.
Oh, I heard,
Yeah, I'm not gonna argue. Yes, ma'am.
I've heard not.
Supposed to be.
Well, this isn't,
Have you seen it?
I saw pictures of it.
Go see it. Then you'll look at this and you say, oh,
It'll make me go after all.
there's only 3 of us. We can have 4.
there we go.
I know, what is that event?
Anyway, it's Saturday, it's 10 o'clock.
Saturday, 10. On our agenda, so I don't know if we can talk about like just a couple of changes, other changes that need to be done, or want us all to look at this and,
Yeah, just take a look at it, and
We'll put it on the
we'll
agenda
put
for
it on the agenda.
John, do you have the original finished artwork on this? Because I took the PDF, converted it to Word,
Oh,
and
my.
it's getting kind of messy here.
I must, I don't actually
So,
remember.
not that I need it right now, that's when we do the update, if we want to continue.
What
with
year
this
was
brochure.
that?
Oh, God.
It was like 2018,
Yeah, you did it.
maybe?
So it was the last year before you took a year off.
Yeah.
I think so. so, yeah, that makes sense.
May I comment? So I think not for this year because of timing, but what I'm thinking might make sense is when is to ask about a redesign of the brochure as a separate item. It's all working together and incorporates the new
Great
logo.
idea,
Yes.
great idea.
Yeah, so my question now is to the board, should I pull the information that's downstairs?
No, I think it's
Just
still
leave-
okay.
leave everything-
Yeah, we're
It's
just- The only changes here are just updating the funded projects and
Really,
the
and
potential for new
some changing new
pictures.
pictures.
Okay,
A
Unless we
couple
come
of,
up with a logo.
Yes.
not typos, but technical things that should be
We're gonna need
select board.
Like switched.
Yeah, that's right, that's
to
changed
make
now.
our
Stuff
get our
like
money's
that.
worth.
You know, yeah.
oh, jeez. Okay, is there anything else for the next agenda? John, you wanted,
Okay, so, I wanna have a discussion about, better on application process. I think that the process we have now, needs to be updated and brought into the 21st century. And what I mean by, what I mean by that is people will be able to go online. They won't need to take a hard copy of the form, put it in a typewriter and type in, or take a hard copy of the form and handwrite the application. There really isn't an alternative. I don't think just distributing a editable copy of the Word document is a good idea at all. That everybody will do something different with that. I think we need to find, and I was saying this 3 years ago, and I kind of dropped it after a while because I couldn't figure out what our website, what things we could add on to the web package that the town of Harwich uses. I think they've moved on. I want to reinitiate that investigation to try to find a clean, useful, agreeable way of doing this. So, and if we start now, maybe by next year, we could have something. So, I probably said more. This wasn't on the agenda, but I would like to have that on the agenda.
Sure.
And I probably will have more to say at the time than I do right now, which is I've said everything I know about it.
and that's good, because I was just about to remind you how long you've been on this board.
Which is, it's 3+ years, I know that.
Anyway, does anybody else want anything on the agenda? Okay, hearing none,
Oh, excuse me?
Go ahead,
so
Ki-
would have the bids probably in on the logo stuff?
all set?
Could I ask a question?
Okay, Mary,
What is the date of our, I know we have a November
October 13th?
13th, and then what would November be?
That's Jan.
At this point, November is 10.
Is what?
November 10.
November 10th.
Another election week, thank you very much.
Second
It's
Thursday.
killing me right now.
Did you have to count ballots in Barnstable?
I went.
And we'll be
yeah,
adding.
So I got home at 4
Yeah.
in the morning,
Yeah,
so
a bunch of them.
I'm a
You
little
should
hard.
probably put that on the calendar,
I was up
Yeah.
at
agenda.
4, I got
There you
home
go,
at 4.
good thought.
Oh, hun.
Today was tough.
I have a few.
Today was worse than yesterday, believe
It
it or not.
kicks in,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Okay, anything from anybody else from the board? Do I hear a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good night, folks.
Who seconded it?